And where did the scissors go? Scissors, there are my scissors. All right, let's get started. So 2020, right? That was the year that happened and still seems to be happening. It was definitely a big year for me in my personal life as well as for my business. There wasn't a ton of stuff that happened with my business this year, but it did, with the pandemic and everything, sort of force me to sit down and reevaluate where I want to go with my sewing business and independent projects that I want to do for myself. So today I want to take some time to talk about just a recap of my year in 2020 and also what I want to do with my vlog and my business moving forward. I have some sewing today to work on. I've been working on this quilt repair for several months. It's taking a lot of hand sewing and a lot of time, and with everything else that has been happening, I just have not sat down and worked on it like I really need to. So I thought today, while I sit and sew, we can talk a little bit about what's to come for 2021. And oh, I just dropped my thread. Woo! We can talk a little bit about what's coming for this year, some plans that I have, and the direction that I want to take my business, as well as other projects that I'm going to be working on, completely unrelated to sewing, which hopefully you'll get to see some more of this year. I'll get started on this corner. So this quilt that I've been working on was made by a man's wife for their first Christmas about 20 years ago. They've had 2 kids, 2 dogs, and it really did a number on the quilt. So instead of repairing what damage is there, I've decided to get plaid that's pretty close to the original, and I put a whole bunch of patches together and just pinned them on top. So I'm tacking all of these down by hand because I'm crazy, but I also like doing a good job with my work. So anyways, 2020, big year. I was very fortunate to land a full-time job in healthcare right when Cinderella ended back in March, and a week before everything shut down in Pennsylvania, and really across the country. I know that Pennsylvania wasn't the first place to close, but we were very much shut down like the rest of the country when that finally happened. So I now work as an admin assistant at a local cancer center. I'm doing that 40 hours a week, which means that my business really took a back seat this year. And that was good. I had decided even before the pandemic hit America that I needed a break from sewing and craft shows. So I had already planned on not doing any craft shows this year. A lot of my products are still available on my website for purchase, but I needed a break. I really loved doing craft shows because of the networking involved and just getting to meet new people. I also learned a lot about just how insanely productive I can be when I'm put in a pinch and when I put my mind to it, because the amount of product that I plowed through and pushed out in the last 2 years of doing craft shows was insane. I sold probably 300 of my pocket infinity scarves and a number of other items as well that did pretty well. But yeah, I was just getting tired and everyone needs a break. And with the pandemic, that also helped me to sort of pivot and refocus my business. Another interesting thing that happened was when everything shut down and everyone was in lockdown and stuck at home, I had a hunch that people started going through their closets and their attics, and all of a sudden we're finding these old quilts. And we're, as they were cleaning out their houses, finding these quilts that my grandma made 40 years ago, or my wife made this, or my mom made this, or, I mean, every email request that I got for quilt repairs, I could predict line for line what it was going to say, which was really cool because on the one hand, it means that a lot of people have quilts in their homes that they find very valuable and that have been very well used and well loved, as I believe quilts should be. And so all of a sudden I was getting a request every other day for quilt repairs, and that was also sort of how I found out that my SEO on my website is pretty darn good, / there are not many people in the country that actually do this quilt repair work, because all of a sudden I was getting requests not from, oh, someone who, you know, a friend who knows me, or referral by word of mouth, which was where a lot of my business had been coming from. I was getting requests from Texas, Oregon, California, Indiana, all across the country. And I started asking people, how did you find me? And they would say, oh, I just Googled quilt repair. And maybe Google's biased, you know, with the algorithm, because obviously if I'm working on my own website and investing in my business and running an Instagram and a Facebook page, maybe my search result is going to come up higher when I actually search myself than it would for somebody else in a different state. So I tried searching quilt repair in an incognito tab, and my business webpage was the 4th Google result, which was a little bit of a mind blow for me. That was weird to see myself that high on the Google ranking. On the one hand, getting that many quilt repair requests was really incredible, and I wish that I could have responded to them all. I wish that I could have taken them all. But at the same time, because I was already working 40 hours a week, it was very overwhelming. This quilt that I'm working on right now, I've had since June. So I'm sorry, you will get it back soon. Sorry that it's taken so long. So between working 40 hours a week and realizing that even though I love sewing and I love quilt repair, I could never make enough money doing it to pay the bills, it made me reevaluate how much of my time I can spend doing this work, which made me sad. And I'm hoping that someday I can really come back to it and make it my career. It's still in the cards. I haven't totally counted it out. But for right now, it's not something I'm going to be doing full time. There was another big life development that happened for me in 2020, and that is that I became a homeowner, which has always been a dream of mine. I grew up in a family that taught me how to do yard work and how to fix little things around the house and how to paint and how to use tools. And I learned a lot of these skills from also working in the theater and doing set construction and set design. And so I've always wanted a fixer-upper. My very first dream job, I mean, when I was maybe 10 years old, I wanted to be an interior designer. I loved watching Trading Spaces and Fixer Upper and other HGTV home improvement shows with my mom in the evenings. And I also grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is incredibly frugal and places a lot of value on those hands-on skills. So I relished the thought of taking $1,000 and completely remaking a room and making it look just entirely different. So I was in the market for a fixer-upper. I had been living with friends for a year, and I was ready to move out and find my own place. And there was a house that went on the market in March before everything closed down, and I didn't have the money at the time to seriously consider it. This was before I got my full-time job. And so I knew it wasn't going to be a possibility, at least not for the time being. And I kind of worried that, you know, it would sell and be gone before I even had the chance to tour the home. And then pandemic happened. And the house was taken off the market because, as my realtor said, you don't want a house to be, you know, sitting around for months on the market without any views, without any offers made, because that makes it look like there's something wrong with the house. There was something wrong with the house. There were a lot of somethings wrong with the house. We'll get to that in a minute. So anyways, the listing was taken down, and Memorial Day weekend, it went back on the market. Now, I fell in love with the fireplace. It just, I could picture sitting there in a big comfy couch with a mug of tea and just cozying up with a book. And the rest of the house really seemed to have a lot of great potential. So when it went back on the market, my realtor sent me a message, said, hey, we should go tour the place. So we set up a tour on, I think it was Friday evening after Memorial Day, and I really liked it. It definitely looked rough, but like I said, I had always wanted a fixer-upper, and so I was excited for the challenge. I booked a second tour Saturday afternoon. We came back, and I looked at my realtor and I said, I can't think of a good enough reason to not put an offer on the house. And so Sunday evening, put an offer on the house, wrote the homeowners a letter saying, I grew up in an old house just like this. I would really love to live here. I understand the kind of work that it's going to take. And, you know, just basically, please let me buy your house. And obviously they liked it. They actually said that the letter made them cry, because even though my asking price was, I think, about 10 grand cheaper than the other offer that they received that day, I got the house. And I went to closing in July. Closing was a nightmare. The homeowners had not finished moving out yet when I came for the walkthrough. They had 2 moving vans in the back of the house. They were still trying to get things out of the house, and it was just, it was like a night. It was crazy. We ended up needing to hire movers and dumpsters, and we filled 2 like 20-foot dumpsters with junk from the house that was still in here, and carpets and debris that we found in the backyard. I really intended to document that entire process, but it very quickly became a case of it just needs to get done. And so I didn't have the time or the energy to videotape every single thing that happened. But it was definitely an adventure. So after closing in July, I spent with family and friends the next month getting the place, 1, clean, 2, livable, 3, functional, because the place looked like it had not been cleaned in probably 5 years. There was a layer of sticky dust on everything. There was like moss and mold growing on the windows and the windowsills. There was mold on the ceilings and behind kitchen sinks. There are 2 bathrooms in the house and 1 kitchen, and all 3 of the sinks were leaking and corroding the pipes underneath it. All of the baseboard heating got ripped out. I treated for termites. I took down a tree that was almost growing on top of the house. We scrubbed everything. My poor mom, bless her, scrubbed the inside of the oven 4 times with oven cleaner before we ran the self-cleaning cycle. And even then, it smoked up the entire bottom half of the house. I had to sit outside with a lawn chair and a fire extinguisher just in case, because I was so worried it would catch my house on fire. And there was also a brief period of time where I wasn't sure if that would be an improvement if my house just burned down. But I moved in on August 22nd, but it's starting to come together, and I'm starting to see all of the, the potential that I originally saw in the house is starting to come out, and it's been really exciting to see where that's going to go in the future. I'm a perfectionist, I'm an idealist, I have lots of big lofty plans that I know are not going to happen overnight, but I bought this house to be my 15, 20, 30-year project. And so it's been very freeing to give myself time, to give myself permission to just work at my own pace and kind of see where that takes me. So, in short, between getting a full-time job and becoming a homeowner, business has taken a bit of a backseat, which is why you haven't heard from me since June. Is that when I posted the video for my Joe March cosplay that was supposed to happen last summer and didn't happen like a lot of other things? Although the watercolors was sort of a nice break. I think I'd like to do that for future cosplays as well, to just show you some of my design process. Yet another big change this year is that I stepped away from Kavad Academy and I'm no longer doing costumes with them. But before I left, I was able to help them reorganize their costume inventory. We downsized everything by about 50% from what it was when I first got there 2.5, 3 years ago, and started doing costumes with them. And we moved our costumes to a new location where they'll be able to have climate controlled storage, and it's a lot more organized for whoever comes after me. So I was really happy to leave that on a good note. I do miss costuming though. I miss the creative aspect. I miss designing costumes. But I'm excited for some cosplays that I want to work on this year for myself. One of my goals for 2021 is to do more sewing for myself, because between my business and other projects I've been working on, I haven't been able to do much of that. I had a pile of mending the other day and just fixing little rips in basic clothing that has been sitting there for close to 2 months because I just haven't had the spoons to work on my own stuff. So I'm hoping that with being able to step back from a lot of other things, I'll be able to do more for myself this year and hopefully document some of that for you as well. In addition to those 3 big changes, the job, the theater, the house, there were a number of other fun things that happened this year. Beginning of October, I became an aunt. I still can't believe that my little brother is a dad. But Amelia Joan is the sweetest little thing that you ever did see. One of the next rooms that I want to work on in my house is a spare bedroom that I'm going to turn into a nursery for her. So when she comes to visit or she wants to spend the night at Aunt Jess's house, she can come stay in her own space. I also bought an antique Singer sewing machine. I've decided to name her Lorelei. Another thing that I worked on in 2020 is embracing my witchy side. Back in October, I had the chance to do what was really my first professional cosplay photo shoot with my friend Amanda of Luna Lit Sky Cosplay, and Michelle Dunn Photography did a really wonderful job. Amanda and I kind of knew each other a couple years ago, but really became good friends about 1.5 years ago. And so that was a lot of fun. I'm hoping to do more photo shoots and video shoots of cosplays for you in the coming year. If any of you have been following me on Instagram, you also know that I have procured my own familiar this year. I got Puck in October, and he's just the sweetest little guy. So that was 2020. Here's what to expect for 2021. I am going to be doing even more home repairs and projects around the house, and I want to take you on that journey with me. So I'm going to be including some videos of home repairs and renovations and paint jobs and other things that I'm going to be doing with my house. At some point, maybe in my next video, I will give a tour of my new sewing room and show you how that is sort of in the works. The room that I'm currently using as my sewing room is not going to be my workshop long term, but it's what I've got for now. And you know what? You don't have to have the perfect sewing space to get started. I started initially when I was living in Raleigh on a card table in the living room, and eventually moved from that to having my own room, and moved from that to having a room at a friend's house, and now I have a room in my own house. So we're working our way up. I am no longer taking requests for quote repairs or for a lot of other big projects. I have some that I just need to work through first, and I have a very long request queue at this point. I probably have 20 emails in my inbox for quote repairs, so I'm not taking any more requests right now. I do hope to be able to do 4 or 5 commissions a year, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but considering that I'm working a whole other job and I have the house, I think that's going to be a lot as it is. I'm going to still be doing alterations and mending, so if you live in the Lancaster area and you're looking for someone to hem your pants or fix a blouse, hit me up, thehazelshope.com. I'll link it below in the description. But really in 2021, I want to focus more on doing sewing for myself. Right now I get a lot of my clothes from the thrift store, which I love. But even in shopping at thrift stores, I don't always find things that fit me right. Because fast fashion is not just made for a limited range of sizes, it's also made for an even more limited range of shapes. And your girl's got hips, and she's got biceps, and lots of other things that I'm very proud of. But that also means that clothing doesn't really fit me like it should if I'm just buying it off the rack. So I want to, this year, make some more clothes for myself that I can feel confident and comfortable in. I want to work on my cosplays and just focus on stuff around the house. I'm hoping to do 3 to 4 cosplays in the next year. A number of those will probably be closet or thrifted cosplays because I like those. They're easy. And a number of the characters that I want to cosplay lend themselves very well to those sort of resources. So you're going to see some of that in the next year. I'm hoping to do 1 or 2 collaborations with some cosplay friends. But this isn't going to continue to be just a sewing channel. I've had a lot of friends on my personal Facebook where I've been chronicling my homeowner's journey say that I'm the reason that they're still on Facebook, and especially after this really crappy year that we've had. I take that as a huge compliment. So I thought it might be nice to be able to share some of my home improvement projects in even more detail through video than I can just in my Facebook stories. I'm also in the spring going to attempt to garden. I have a really bad habit of killing houseplants, and I'm hoping that if I let them live outside in the wild, even the cultivated wild, they'll do a little bit better. So gardening adventures, sewing adventures, home improvement adventures, all going to be coming to you on my blog this year. And with that being said, I think maybe it's time for a rebrand. When I was initially trying to think of a name for my blog, I was doing Google searches trying to figure out what was already there so that I wouldn't, appear to be mimicking or copying anyone else, or, just to help my own search function to not be confused with someone else. And I didn't realize, my apologies, that red threaded was such a big deal as they have turned out to be, as I've noticed that they are. And they do a lot of really excellent work with corsetry and historical garments, and I don't want to be confused for them or think that I'm stealing their thunder. There was just a really limited number of puns that incorporated sewing and being a ginger, and so that was kind of my go-to to do redhead threads. So since my channel is heading in a new direction, it just seems a good time to rebrand. Since a lot of my adventures in the coming months, I'm going to be inviting you into my home, into my life, to see what I'm doing here. And because I am one of those pretentious people who decided it was appropriate to name her house, she's got her whole personality, so it just seemed fit to give her a name as well. Come, sit, join me while I sew and work on my house. I'll make you some tea. Welcome to Salem.